Hello everybody and welcome to your virtual field trip. Today we're going to be talking about the 6 different groups of animals. One of our animal groups is mammals. Guess what? We are mammals. Mammals have fur or hair. We have hair. And they also are warm-blooded. So when we get really hot, we start sweating. When we get really cold, we start shivering. That's what warm-blooded means. So mammals, that's us. That's one of the groups of animals. There's also fish. Fish live in the water and they breathe oxygen through the water instead of through the air like we do. They also have scales or kind of like skin, and they lay lots and lots of eggs in the water. Another group is birds. Birds have feathers or wings. So wings is not the only requirement to be a bird, because bats are mammals and butterflies are insects. They're not birds. So remember that you have to think of the animals that have feathers or wings They also lay eggs. Pretty cool animal group is birds. Another one that gets kind of confused easily is reptiles and amphibians, and we'll talk about some of the differences later. But reptiles, turtles, or snakes are a great example of reptiles here in Iowa. They are cold-blooded, so they can't warm up, they can't sweat or shiver to regulate how hot or cold their body is. They like to lay out in the sun if they need to warm up. So reptiles are another animal group. Amphibians are sometimes confused with them, although they're really quite different. Amphibians have moist skin, so they have to stay nice and wet and cool. Amphibians are frogs and salamanders here in Iowa. And last but not least is our invertebrates. It's a really big word, but basically what it means is their backbone is different than ours. Our backbone is right behind us. If we reach around and touch that big long bump in the middle of our back, that's our backbone. It's inside our body. Invertebrates, their backbone is on the outside of their body. It's called an exoskeleton, outside skeleton. All of our invertebrates have that. And invertebrates make up 95%, almost all of the animals on our planet. So there's a lot of invertebrates that live here on Earth. So we're gonna head out on 6 different adventures to explore the 6 different animal groups. Here we go. Another animal group that we have is the mammals. So we are mammals, humans are mammals, but a lot of our fur bearers are mammals as well. So I wanna show you a couple furs and see if you know what they are. So here is the first fur. I bet you can guess what this one is. This is a skunk, right? The skunk's fur is like a warning sign. Stay back, because if you get too close, I'll spray you. So we have the skunk. This is another common one here. Look at the tail and the face. This is a raccoon. Raccoons, we have a lot of them here in Iowa, especially Jefferson County, and you might see their tracks when you're out on different adventures. That one's a raccoon. This one is so soft. This one is the red fox. A little bit more rare to see, but we do have them here in Jefferson County. This one is becoming more common to see. This is a bobcat. We have quite a few bobcats that live in Jefferson County Park, but they are really secretive animals. They like to kind of hide from us. So we don't see them all that often, but we know that they're there. And the last one, this one is a tricky one. This is a river otter. These were introduced back to Iowa in the last few years, and they've made quite a comeback, but they are another one that's kind of more rare to see because they like to live in creeks or rivers, and if they hear us coming, then they slide into the water and they swim away. So hard to see, but another one that's becoming more common in Iowa. All 5 of these are examples of mammals that you can find here in Jefferson County. We have lots of different fish that are found here in Iowa, but the 3 most common that we have here in our park and in southern Iowa in general are the bluegill. This one gets its name because it has a blue gill. Pretty easy to identify. The next one is a largemouth bass. This one is a predator. And if you ever catch one, you can see when we hold it up that it has a really big mouth, hence the name largemouth bass. And the last one here is the black bullhead. So these are 3 types of fish that we stock in a lot of our ponds here. So those are 3 of the more common ones that you might catch if you come out to some of our areas and go fishing. All right, Emmy, are you reeling in a fish?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm reeling in a fish.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there just made a splash out in the water, didn't it? You see how it gets its name? It has a little bit of blue right on the edge of its gill there. Another kind of cool thing about fish is that they don't have an eyelid like we do. So their eyes are always open. If you were to touch this fish, it'd feel nice and slimy. Fish have slime on the outside of their bodies to kind of protect them from anything else that's touching them. So when I touch fish, I try and have my hand a little bit wet. Now, if I hold the bluegill like this, and right, like when we first caught it, it had all of its kind of fins here sticking up. And if I would touch these the wrong way, ouch, that would hurt my finger really bad. So you want to make sure that you kind of brush those gills down when you hold them so you don't get poked. So what type of fish is this? This is a bluegill, exactly. We're gonna get him back into the water so it can get its oxygen from the water. We get our oxygen from the air, but fish get their oxygen from the water. So we're gonna put him back in, let him swim away. There he goes. So out on the water, you can see another example of one of our animal groups. These are geese. We have the mama goose and her 4 baby geese that are out there on the water. We kind of spotted them on the side of the pond. They were near the nest, and now they're kind of swimming out on the pond. You can see there's one that's kind of lagging behind a little bit that the mama's waiting up for. And the mama goose is honking, and that's kind of her way of saying alert, alert. So these are geese, and this is an example of one of the members of the bird animal group. Reptiles and amphibians are sometimes confused by people, so we're going to talk about those. The first one that I want to talk about is an amphibian here. This is a frog. Amphibian means 2 lives. So they start their life in the water and they start their life as eggs. This is a plastic example of what frog eggs would look like. So from each of these eggs, there's all these little black dots. Those would be a little tadpole. From that egg hatches a tadpole. The tadpole has a head and a nice long tail, and they live completely in the water, just like the eggs did. The tadpole starts growing back legs. Still looks like a tadpole, but now it has back legs on it. Still lives completely in the water. Then we start seeing a really big change. The frog or tadpole grows back legs and the front legs, and the tail is starting to get shorter and shorter. This is like a hybrid, a little bit of a tadpole, but a little bit of a frog. Eventually, the rest of the tail all absorbs back into the body, and we have a frog, just like this leopard frog here. The tail, you can see, is completely gone, and now this frog breathes air, breathes oxygen through the air just like we do. So a frog is an example of an amphibian. Now, a reptile is a little bit different. Reptiles, the most common one that we see is turtles. So this is an example of a shell from a snapping turtle. And if I turn this around, you can see the bottom part of the shell, but you can maybe also see the backbone down in here. So our backbone, if you reach your hand behind your back and feel that big bump that goes down the middle of your back, that's your backbone. This is a turtle's backbone. So the turtle has this big backbone, this big shell that protects it. this is another cool thing about a turtle. This is the skull of a snapping turtle, and you can see how it has this hook right here on its mouthpiece. It uses that to eat its food. It doesn't use a fork and a knife like we do. It has to use its sharp mouthpiece, and also it has really sharp claws that it can use too. Another cool thing about turtles is they lay eggs just like the amphibians do, but these eggs are a little bit different. These are some shells from snapping turtle eggs. So the egg itself actually looks like a ping pong ball, and they lay those on land. After the turtle hatches from that shell, then it crawls as close as it can to water, because turtles still do like to be around water. So those are two examples of, we have our reptiles, the turtles, and we have our amphibians, the frogs. One of our animal groups is invertebrates. So remember, that means that they don't have their backbone inside their body, it's on the outside. So one of them that you might know is the butterfly, the monarch butterfly. This is kind of one of the easiest butterflies to spot and remember. And its life cycle is really interesting. It starts out as an egg on a milkweed leaf. From the egg hatches a little tiny caterpillar. This caterpillar looks like a Hawkeye fan. It's yellow and black and a little bit of white in there. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it just basically, when it's a caterpillar, it just eats and poops. That's all it does all day. But then when it finally gets big enough, it turns into a chrysalis, a little bit different than a cocoon. A cocoon is something that the insect spins. This one is actually from the monarch's caterpillar's body itself. It goes into its chrysalis, it stays there for a little over a week, and then out hatches the butterfly. So into the chrysalis goes the caterpillar, out comes the butterfly. So that's one example of an invertebrate. Another is a praying mantis. So praying mantis is a really cool looking insect. It has these big front arms that look like they're praying, kind of folded, and it has this triangle shaped head, so pretty easy to identify. And it has a really cool life cycle too. So it will find a branch out in the prairie, and it will lay this little egg group, and it actually is really kind of soft at first. Then after a little bit of time, it turns into a hard case. Out of this case comes little baby praying mantis, and lots of them. Then they go out and they find, even though they're on a leaf here, they don't eat leaves, they eat other insects. They'll even eat their brothers and sisters from that egg case. So they're really a hungry animal. And then it keeps growing and turns into the praying mantis. When we were out in the prairie, we actually found a praying mantis egg case. So you can see how cool it looks. And so far, none of the eggs have hatched out of this egg case. So we're really excited to see when they hatch out. These are another example of invertebrates. We hope you had fun on your animal groups field trip out here at Jefferson County Park. We learned about the animal groups birds, fish, invertebrates, reptiles, amphibians, and mammals. So we hope that you learned something interesting today.